Well, I have lost count. I have lost count of all the gifted and exceptional kids I've known who are failing at life. I'm not sure they were gifted or exceptional. They seem to struggle with self-esteem because they mistakenly have been taught that our world thinks they're special. Others' esteem, measuring your worth through the accolades of others based on your real or perceived performance. This will never become self-esteem. And today, we're simultaneously experiencing an epidemic of low self-esteem in our youth with the epidemic of giftedness and exceptionality. We have set them up to become navel-gazers, living in constant comparison with others. I once knew a young man who was really smart. I mean, really smart. So smart that he not only aced the SAT, but he was the valedictorian in his high school class of 600. He was accepted to every notable and prestigious engineering school in the country. He was the big fish in the little pond, with the whole world ahead of him for his taking. And he had grown up being told, "You are the smartest kid in the school. You have special gifts in math and science. Your IQ is exceptional. You are special." In fact, that became his identity, being special. So after graduation, off to MIT he went, ready to succeed again. And within 2 months of starting at MIT, he realized for the first time in his life that he was average. Yes, average at MIT, but still average. And when his midterms came back B's, C's, and a D, he had an identity crisis. He wasn't the big fish in the little pond anymore. He wasn't even the smartest anymore. And he wasn't getting the exceptional messages that he had become so accustomed to. He was just an average, maybe even below average fish in a big pond. So one night he jumped off the 8th floor balcony at a local hotel, ending his life and the potential it offered. Resilience embraces the understanding that life is difficult and things will not go my way all the time. It stems from an understanding that you're a tiny little ant on this large planet, and that planet doesn't revolve around you. Resilience requires that you accept your averageness. And you probably know some resilient people. Every resilient person I know would never think of themselves as resilient, and therein lies the caveat. Resilient people don't have being resilient on their resume. It just has become part of the resilient person, a way of looking at life, an alternate mindset, so that when expectations fall short, when you have a big long-term goal in your life, when victory is snatched away, when your family dynamics are chaotic, when you don't know how things are going to turn out, when you've been abandoned or betrayed, resilience is what keeps you going. And it is birthed from hardship and loss and the unknown. But it is rooted in a desire to continue to survive and even thrive through it all. But what's interesting about resilience is it doesn't just happen. You have to learn it. You have to earn resilience. And I want to turn now to what research says about how resilience is developed and fostered in kids. So what things need to be in place at some point in time, at least, for a child to become a resilient, life-ready young adult? Studies have shown that 4 key factors pave the way to resilience. And the first one, as previously mentioned, is at least one supportive, committed adult relationship in your life. Kids need someone to help them put success and failure into the context of their life. Kids need someone who will transfer wisdom to them and buffer adversity for them. And when that does not exist for a child, they typically have unhealthy ways of coping with their victories and their defeats. Kids need to experience healthy attachment to this supportive, committed adult relationship, preferably early on, and preferably it's apparent. Healthy attachment requires, first, a safe and secure connection to a parent or adult who brings calm and stability into the child's life. They provide a safe haven to protect the child from predators and a secure base from which the child can explore their world. Next, this adult supplies predictable, compassionate availability. This means a parent is consistently available to their child while having an appropriate amount of compassion for the situation not too much and not too little. The parent needs to be an emotional container for the child. This means the emotions of the child do not affect the connection with the parent, and it also means that the child is not supposed to be the emotional container for their parent. And finally, the parent keeps their focus on the child's mind and development. This is a big view mindset of parenting. The second ingredient for resilience after one supportive adult in your life is self-efficacy and a perceived control of your future. In his 1997 book titled Self-Efficacy, Albert Bandura defined it as the belief in your ability to achieve goals. To believe in your ability to achieve gives a sense of control over your future, which is what motivates us to try again and not give up. The opposite of self-efficacy might be what we know as learned helplessness, where a child cannot count on their caregiver for predictable and authentic concern. Learned helplessness is living in unpredictability, so that a sense of control over a future is lost. The third ingredient for resilience is the development of adaptive skills and self-regulation. Now, many kids we all work with are very dysregulated. Am I correct? They're out of control. They have very high levels of degree of difficulty. But these critical life skills of adaptation and self-regulation need to be taught and modeled for each kid. Adaptive skills are those things that manage our threats and our failures and our mistakes that we all experience, and self-regulation is how that management is exhibited on the outside. So think of a child you see growing up in a chaotic household. Maybe they've experienced several adversities in their life, and their parents bring them to you because they have frequent rages, or repeatedly withdraw to their bedroom to get away from the stress, or they pursue perfectionism as a way to cope, or maybe they exert power over other people in unhealthy ways, or blame everyone else for their failures. Different types of self-protection are really just adaptive skills gone awry because they're being overutilized by the child. And then finally, resilience is built when you have hope in what your future holds. The belief that we have some control of our future and destiny is the prerequisite for hope. And without the sense of control over our own destiny, there is no hope. And it's typically through things like faith and cultural traditions that we experience a belonging to something bigger and beyond ourselves. And that ultimately brings hope in our lives because we identify with more than just ourselves, and we accept that our life is not about me, and we are called to fit into a bigger story. Now, most parents start out parenting with wonderful and admirable hopes. After the baby is born, parents start the process of falling in love. They also start the process of understanding legacy, usually for the first time. And starting right there in the delivery room, parents have hopes. Hope that their child would not experience pain. Hope that their child will not suffer from emotional problems. Hope that their child would never get a life-threatening disease, or hope that their child will never make a life-altering decision. Yet there's a gap between what parents hope for their child and what raising kids turns out to be. Am I right, parents? And these unmet expectations lead to parents who are frustrated and then disappointed and angry, exasperated, maybe even guilty or detached. And this gap between hopes and expectations and the reality of parenting creates roadblocks to a child becoming resilient because their parents can lose course on their primary job, which is to guide and to prepare their child for adulthood. Parents wear many hats, but the number one, absolute, most important job a parent has is to guide and prepare their child to be life-ready. Everything else is secondary. And no other character quality is more important to becoming life-ready than being resilient. When I see a new patient in my behavior clinic with their parents, I like to assess whether the parent is parenting in ways that foster resilience or whether they're parenting in ways that hinder resilience. And having worked in pediatrics for over 30 years, I've seen a lot of parents. I usually end up thinking about parents in three ways. Parents who try too hard, parents who do not appear to be trying hard enough, and parents in the middle who are raising their child with balance, common sense, and a big view mindset. And although parents can move between these three categories, I think most parents stay in one unless they come to some crisis point and are trained and educated to go a different way. And each approach of trying too hard, not trying enough, and parenting in the middle includes parents who care deeply for their children and have good intentions for their child. And I've found that parents of non-resilient kids become very motivated to look at different ways to parent their child. In other words, most parents want to do a good job with this, and most parents want their child to be resilient. So let's start with parents who try too hard. Parents try too hard to accomplish an outcome in their child that they think is the right one. We call this over-parenting. There are four main ways over-parenting plays out: over-involvement, over-indulgence, over-affirmation, and over-protection. And each type of over-parenting hinders resilience in different ways and result in predictable consequences for their child. And these consequences make resilience very difficult to develop. Over-involvement is the parent who believes that good parents are always involved in every aspect and part of their child's life. You may know some. Perhaps a parent who thinks this way was raised by parents who were over-involved. Their parents never missed their games, volunteered for everything, and attended all their choir concerts. This person saw it, and it was modeled for them and reinforced, and they grew up believing it's the best way to be a good parent. And on the flip side, perhaps a parent who thinks this way was raised by parents who weren't involved at all. Their parents never attended any band concerts or sporting events, and maybe they only made it to one theater performance. And this person grew up wounded by parents who didn't show up. They were off the radar. And because of that, this person swung their parenting pendulum to the other side, the extreme opposite, and became over-involved with their own kids. It's not that parental involvement isn't a good thing. I believe it is. But I'm talking about over-involvement here. You know, the parents who demand an emergency meeting with the teacher and principal for a grade below their expectations. Parents who step in to referee every sibling argument and fight. Parents who incessantly talk at their child about what food they're eating or not eating at dinner, or how badly the dishwasher was loaded. This approach for parents is exhausting. And over time, and especially as the child grows older, the over-involvement can feel like harassment to the child. And they become resentful that they don't have their own life, resentful that whatever they have done, are doing, or will do is destined to involve their parent. These are kids who rarely develop self-efficacy or perceive that they have control over what happens in their life. And because they don't have their own life, resilience is hard to muster. Overindulgence is the second way parents can overparent their child and hinder resilience. And the mindset behind this has to do with fabricating happiness or preventing disappointment in your child. No parent wants to deprive their child, but overindulgence takes this to the next level. This can play out in a million different ways. Things like unchaperoned spring break trips in high school, unlimited expensive designer clothes, or a new car for the 16th birthday. Overindulgence can manifest in little things, like another snack, or more video game time, or not following through with a family rule. You see, overindulgence gives a kid something they didn't deserve, didn't earn, or to get out of something. And it usually reinforces whining, tantrums, rage, or avoiding responsibility. And these parents definitely have a hard time saying no. So for parents who overindulge their kids, it's expensive, both in monetary terms and in the parent-child relationship. The payoff tends to become more costly as the child grows up. And for the child who is overindulged, they become entitled. Entitlement prevents a child from learning how to delay gratification, and it prevents them from having a balanced relationship with their parent due to the deal that exists between them. A parent who thinks it's their job to make their kid happy, and a child who knows how to get a payoff from their parent. So entitlement creates this parent-child relationship that's not based in healthy attachment, making it difficult for a child to become resilient. Next is over-affirmation. This is a big one. I believe in affirming a child. We all probably believe that. Affirmation is a good thing for parents to do. but only as long as it's merited and accurate. Over-affirmation is affirming in exaggerated and untrue ways, and it stems from the nurture movement of the 1980s when parents were told that if you affirm your child, they will develop self-esteem. And unfortunately, parents wrongly believed that more and more affirmation would be more and more self-esteem, and this is simply not true. With most things in life, if the initial premise is wrong, most everything we do about it will be wrong. And when it involves over-affirmation, parents can become the masters of missing the point. Over-affirmation requires a parent to participate in building a false self in their child. A child who's been over-affirmed has a consequence. They have difficulty with accurate self-assessment. They've heard constant, overly positive, embellished messages from their parent, but what has been said has not reflected what is really true about them. A couple of examples. A parent might say, "You're the best basketball player on your 5th grade team. You're headed for the NBA someday." Or, "You're an exceptional and gifted singer. I bet you're going to win The Voice someday." These types of comments build a false self, and many times a child believes the identity of the over-affirmations. And when the inevitable collision with life happens, and they realize what they've been told isn't true, they have an identity crisis, and self-esteem plummets. And when self-esteem plummets and is in the tank, hope in your future is lost, making resilience difficult. Finally, parents hinder resilience in their child when they are overprotective. The term helicopter parenting has been used a lot to describe this form of overparenting. And new terms like lawnmower parents, and in Minnesota, snowplow parents, speak to the next level of helicopter parenting. Let me explain the difference. Helicopter parents swoop in to rescue their child when they recognize that the child is starting to suffer, hurt, face adversity, underachieve, or fail. They are the fixer in their child's life. Lawnmower and snowplow parents are different. They completely clear the child's path of potential hardship or pain so that the child can grow up pain-free. They are the preventer in the child's life. Overprotective parents are always on guard, always fixing, always compensating for their child, always preventing the next potentially painful experience. And kids growing up with overprotective parents have some life-altering consequences. They struggle with problem solving in life because they've rarely encountered situations that they've been allowed to fix for themselves. Parents who overprotect their children from difficulty never give their child a chance to face a challenge. The child may have no opportunity to feel what it's like to experience a loss. And who can ever experience victory when they don't know what it feels like to lose? So overprotected kids usually don't get a chance to recover, and many never get to see if they're capable at anything, especially capable of overcoming. And because of this, they tend to be dependent adolescents and young adults, incapable of adapting to adult life or dealing with disappointment on their own. Simple, novel experiences in young adulthood can result in maladaptive coping and a collapse of self-regulation. Life becomes too big and too scary for them, and they shut down, waiting for someone to fix their situation, and they do not become resilient young people. So resilience is learned by experiencing joys and hardships, successes and failures, victories and defeats. And each type of overparenting blocks one of the 4 key ingredients of developing resilience. Overparenting breaks the connection between what life sometimes is, what life needs to teach us, and what life fully lived could be.